side of summer with cool springs, shaded trails, and open prairie. Visitors can paddle, explore, and take in Florida's natural landscapes at visitgainesville.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team. NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. The economy slowed in the second quarter. The Commerce Department says it grew at an annual rate of 1.5%, down from the 2.1% in the first quarter. And inflation remained fairly high last month at 3.7% year over year. Legal scholars are reacting to Dr. Anthony Fauci's decision to invoke the Fifth Amendment at yesterday's Senate hearing on the origins of COVID-19. NPR's Ari Daniels has more.
President Biden issued Fauci a blanket legal pardon at the end of his term, but legal experts say the former top infectious disease expert could have been accused of perjury if he had said something at yesterday's hearing contradicting past statements made under oath. Jennifer Mason McAward, a law professor at the University of Notre Dame, says that invoking the Fifth is not an admission of wrongdoing.
Saying that you are protected by the Constitution is just something you're entitled to do as a citizen of the United States.
Republican chairman of the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, Rand Paul, says he plans to hold a vote on whether Fauci should be held in contempt of Congress. An affirmative vote could eventually lead to a fine, jail time, or both. R.A. Daniel, NPR News.
Former FBI Director Jim Comey is asking a judge to throw out criminal charges that he threatened President Trump, saying he's the target of a vindictive prosecution. He's pointing to new evidence that suggests that Trump paid very close attention as federal agents built that case. NPR's Carrie Johnson has more.
Jim Comey filed a bunch of motions this week trying to get a judge in North Carolina to throw out this case before it ever gets to a jury. His lawyers say they've gathered a lot of evidence that should suggest Comey got charged with crimes because he's a frequent Trump critic. This is information we don't normally see at this stage before a case gets to trial. Comey's lawyers are talking about messages from people inside the Secret Service saying the president wanted updates about interviews federal agents were conducting with Comey.
NPR's Carrie Johnson. The Trump administration is ending subsidies for Medicare's drug plans. NPR's Sydney Lupkin has more.
Under the Inflation Reduction Act, Medicare started capping patients' out-of-pocket drug spending at $2,000 last year. That change, and others that changed how plans would pay for drugs, meant insurers were on the hook for more money. At first, they didn't know how much more they'd be spending or how high to set premiums. To ease the transition for insurers, the Biden administration created temporary subsidies to stabilize premiums. The subsidies were expected to last 3 years, but are ending a year early at the end of 2026. Dr. Mehmet Oz, who oversees the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, said on the social media platform X that it's because the subsidies are no longer needed. But the change means beneficiaries could be paying higher monthly premiums next year.
Sydney Lupkin reporting. This is NPR.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning, I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. An 8-year-old downtown investment authority proposal that could make parts of Riverside Avenue, Forest, and West Monroe streets in Jacksonville more pedestrian-friendly is being revived by City Council member Jimmy Peluso. Along with reducing the number of lanes on the roadways, the proposal would add bike lanes and new parallel parking. Peluso is proposing the update to cut Riverside Avenue and nearby Forest Street from 6 to 4 lanes, plus switching part of West Monroe Street to two-way traffic. He says he doesn't expect any traffic issues.
Not everyone has to, go up and down Riverside Ave. And again, if we want to make sure that we're making it feel more like a neighborhood and an extension of downtown, we got to connect it appropriately.
Peluso says the entire project could cost around $300,000, with the money coming from the pedestrian safety funds in the city budget. There will be additional opportunities for public feedback before the design is finalized by the city's Public Works Department and construction begins. Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier says his office will investigate Anthony Fauci, the former chief medical advisor to the president during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Republicans are criticizing Fauci for invoking the Fifth Amendment during a Senate confirmation hearing yesterday. No details on what the investigation will focus on were discussed by the Attorney General. This hour, showers and storms moving through parts of northeast Clay County, Jacksonville South Side, and northwest St. John's. This afternoon, temperatures are expected to rise into the low to mid-90s.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include FJC, a foundation of donor-advised funds working to maximize the impact of charitable giving and to create customized philanthropic solutions. Learn more at fjc.org.
Butt in for Ann Schindler. Today, providing wraparound services for Northeast Florida's unhoused community, the ambitious new plans underway. Later in the program, we speak to Ryan Tutson, the fellow Democrat vying to unseat incumbent Kimberly Daniels in the August primary. But first, it took nearly a decade of planning to get this one-of-a-kind Enterprise Village project off the ground. When completed, the campus-like development will span nearly 17 acres across Northwest Jacksonville, offering housing, healthcare services, and workforce training in culinary and food service for those in need. Here to tell us more about the development and how it came to be, we're joined by the CEO of Sulzbacher, Cindy Funkhauser. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
And Whitney Meyer, a Sulzbacher board member and Senior Vice President and Chief Community Officer for the Jaguars. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Good morning. Thanks
Good
for having
morning. Now, Cindy, you all broke ground earlier this month on the second phase of the Enterprise Village in the city's Brentwood area. And I want to get to that, but what will be offered in the campus as a whole?
So as a whole, there's basically 3 phases, and we operate in 3 areas: housing, healthcare, and the area we call HOPE. So HOPE is actually income, job creation, education. So in order for somebody to be self-sustaining, they have to obviously have a living wage job or benefits. So housing, healthcare, HOPE. So when we were looking to build this campus, which you mentioned we have been planning for many, many years, we had to look at what does an unhoused person, what do they need? And not just what do the people that we're currently serving need, but what does that part of the community need, the Northwest Quadrant.
How many people have been served by the Sulzbacher Center, and what do they need? Give me some details about that.
Yes. So that's hard to say because we have almost 8,000 patients a year. We permanently house almost 600 people a year. We probably have 2,000 people coming through our emergency housing. So thousands and thousands of people a year come through our center. We do meals every day in the community, which we started, 30 years ago, And we have served lunch and dinner to anybody in the community that's hungry for 30 years, 365 days a year. Our kitchen has never closed because hunger doesn't take a holiday. So that is the base. The base is the emergency housing and the meals. And then, of course, the person needs a case manager. And we're working on those three areas: housing, healthcare, and income. And so we're a federally qualified health center. There's only 2 federal clinics in Jacksonville, us and Agape. And so a federal clinic is the safety net of all safety nets, and we see anyone, insured, uninsured, Medicaid, Medicare, anyone from birth to senior citizens can come to us for dental, medical, behavioral health, substance use treatment. And so the healthcare piece is extremely important, obviously, the housing piece, and then, as I said, the job training piece. So those are the 3 major areas. And when people come to us, we're going to give them the resources in all of those areas.
Winnie, let me bring you in. What gets you excited about this Enterprise Village project?
It's something new, right? It's taking everything that Sulzbacher's already known for and it's already so good at doing, and taking it to a whole new level and bringing in new partners, which I know we'll get into and talk a little bit more about later. But when you think about all that Sulzbacher does and this new, taking the workforce initiatives to a new level, and specifically with construction, right? We see there's a huge need for construction and jobs in the trades. And this new village helps meet that need immediately right here in Northeast Florida.
So let's talk about how this project started.
Mm-hmm. So many years ago, when Audrey Moran was our CEO, and this was right after the last recession, I will say, in 2008, we were bursting at the seams at the downtown campus. We had the one campus, and we had a huge increase in homeless families after that recession. Prior to that, it was mostly men, some single women, but there was just a huge influx of homeless families, and we did not have the capacity at that campus to handle it. So we decided that we needed to have a new campus. And so we had been looking for property and all of that. And then Audrey, when she left and I took over, we continued to do that. We planned it, and we built the Sulzbacher Village for Women and Families, which is also in Brentwood. And it has, permanent housing, because housing, at the end of the day, is the answer to homelessness, permanent housing. So it has 70 apartments. We had to think about what does a family need? And most our homeless families, 90% are single moms. What does a single mom need in order to stabilize that family? So that is how we built the first village. We have Head Start. We have 5-star Head Start program, after-school program. We have a huge clinic there. We have Goodwill and FSCJ on campus doing job training. So we had to look at and talk to our moms and say, what do you want and need? That's how the first campus got built. That was opened in 2018. At that point, we were already thinking about how are we going to do the same thing for the men? Because the single men, that's who's left at the downtown campus. How are we going to do the same thing and move out of downtown? Because it was our goal always to move out of downtown. And so we started planning this new village and thinking about, again, what does an unhoused man, what are they going to need? And then what more can we do for the community? Because that's an area of town that's a health desert, it's a food desert, and the outcomes, the health outcomes in that part of town are extremely concerning. So that's when we started planning. And Whitney and I were just talking about this. Mm-hmm. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So we had to decide, we have 17 acres. What needs to be on 17 acres? And so we broke it down into phases. The housing, let's do that first because we know we need that. And so the housing, we should be cutting the ribbon on that in October. It's almost done. 100 apartments. Very exciting. So studio and 1 bedroom for men. And then what's next? We need healthcare next. Healthcare and job training. So that's what we broke ground on 2 weeks ago. But the healthcare piece is so exciting at this campus because our health partner is Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic is our health partner. And not just giving us money, they've helped us plan the clinic, and they will be there 5 days a week seeing uninsured people in all sorts of subspecialties. And so that is thrilling to have Mayo as our partner in the Northwest quadrant of Jacksonville, Florida. And then the job training, what needs to be there, as Whitney said, we need construction jobs, we need hospitality and culinary jobs, and we need entry-level healthcare jobs. Those are the jobs that we're going to be training for through FSCJ and Goodwill on campus in their own 14,000 square foot building. And then the next phase, we'll build our corporate headquarters. We're going to build an assisted living facility because many unhoused people are disabled. And we're seeing more and more seniors. That is the fastest growing segment of the homeless population, senior citizens. That's very, very sad and very, very scary. So we're going to be building an assisted living facility, which will have another floor with substance use and mental health recovery. And then the last piece, the enterprise. You were saying, why is it named that? We're going to have a for-profit manufacturing plant that builds tiny homes. So that's the whole cycle. A person comes in, they get housed, they get trained in the trades, and then they get a living wage job with benefits, and then they build housing for other people who are unhoused.
Because you're really trying to do wraparound services. You're
Yes.
talking about healthcare, economic needs, housing. And when you talked about tiny homes, I was going to ask you, when you started this project compared to now, there are probably even more challenges with housing than you were facing when you first started.
Housing, affordable housing is a nationwide crisis. We know that. And I think it was last year, Whitney can correct me if she remembers, or the year before, because the Jaguars are very, very concerned about affordable housing, and you can talk a little bit about that. But when they did a poll, UNF does their poll, as you know, and the number one issue in Jacksonville, Florida right now is affordable housing. It's not crime. It's not anything else. It's affordable housing.
And Whitney, as we talk about the stadium improvements, that has been one of the concerns that have come up for especially residents in that area.
Mhm.
Why is it something that you're passionate about?
Yeah, when us at the Jaguars, we always said if we only have a shiny new stadium at the end of this project, then we failed miserably. So for us, we actually built in through the community benefits agreement issues of housing specifically surrounding the stadium project. But I don't want to get too much into that today. Here to talk about Sulzbacher, of course, but for any organization who's thinking, why Sulzbacher? Why would I want to partner with this organization? Cindy laid it out perfectly. Here at Sulzbacher, we're truly committed to thinking of the larger picture. Someone and what are they going to need for the next few years? And once we help one person, that's generational wealth for not just them, but for their friends and family surrounding them. Because everyone knows once you hear and experience a good thing, you want to go out and share it with others.
And you make a really nice facility, but the goal is not for people to stay there, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct, exactly. And that's why that workforce development piece and that partnership with Mayo Clinic and the partnership with FSCJ and Goodwill are so vital to this success. Cindy and I were talking earlier this morning about that's what makes Jacksonville special. It's the power of relationships and knowing that one organization cannot solve this. It really takes all of us coming together and being committed to the many phases of this project. As Cindy's laid out, it's one phase at a time. It's a large project, and we're so excited for all the different phases and the groundbreakings and the ribbon cuttings because it keeps the momentum in the city coming together for a common cause.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Sulzbacher CEO Cindy Funkhauser and board member Whitney Meyer about the Enterprise Village, the nonprofit's new development on the north side. You can join the conversation on air by calling 904-549-2937 or go to firstcoastconnect.org to find all the ways that you can connect with us. Can you talk a little bit more in detail about the units? Are they free? Are they affordable? And how do people phase in and out of the facility?
So the permanent units, the 100 apartments, they're like any other apartment. You sign a lease and you pay rent. Some people will be in there on vouchers, for example, through the housing authority. Some people will. But there'll be a lot of people just self-paying their rent. And that's the whole, the purpose of they have to have that income It's the whole package together. We'll also be getting some VA housing vouchers. So I think 20 or 25 of those units will be for veterans. So we're very excited about that piece. And so, yes, those people pay rent, and then they can renew their lease, and, they can stay there. Or they can stay and then decide to move out somewhere in the community. So, it is permanent housing. We also will have 80 short-term units. There will be nothing here that is a shelter. All right. Everyone gets an individual room. And we find that in tiny homes. We now have 10 tiny homes on our downtown campus. That's a pilot program with DuPont. We're really grateful to the DuPont Fund. But we work with JFRD, and I don't know if you know, but they have a program called PATH, which is their homeless outreach people. We have a law called HB 1365 in this state that was passed the year before last that basically makes it illegal to sleep in public. And so we have worked closely with the city, and JFRD established the PATH program. They refer people directly to us for the tiny homes, because a lot of people who are chronically homeless on the street will not go into a shelter. That's why having individual units, individual tiny homes is critical, because we have people in the tiny homes now, the 10 people, average length of homelessness for them is 14 years. They have been on the streets of Jacksonville on average 14 years, 27 years. And I asked that gentleman of 27 years on the street, who is a Vietnam veteran and disabled in a wheelchair, how come you decided to come here? Why did you decide to accept the tiny home? And he said, because I can go inside and lock the door and know I'm safe.
Wow.
And know I'm safe. And so that's why having dignified individual units where a person can go in and shut the door is critical. So there'll be 80 of those, and we take people right off the street, just like any other shelter. So they'll come in, and it's emergency housing. So it is shelter in a way, but it's non-congregate, which means you're not sleeping in a room with other people.
Some may be wondering why women and children aren't included in this specific offering. Again, tell us why you're focusing on men.
Well, we built the Village for Women and Families already, and it opened in 2018. So we built their village first. So they have their own village. And so anybody, single women or families, they live on the campus at which is at 44th and Pearl, Sulzbacher Village for Women and Families. And that's why, this campus, it's just the housing that's for men. All the other services that we're talking about are open to the community, not just the men that live there, but men, women, anyone, and anyone from the community. You don't have to be homeless to come to our clinics, for sure. You can have insurance. So that's why it's critical for that part of town. Also, the manufacturing plant would be hiring people, not just our people. Working closely with Operation New Hope, if you're familiar with them, they will be referring people to us as well. So this is a community campus. It isn't just a Sulzbacher campus.
And Operation New Hope helps people that have been incarcerated and are coming out with nonviolent criminals find jobs and housing. Also a challenge, and an organization that's had a lot of great local success.
Yes.
But like them, I'm wondering, how has funding been a challenge for you? I know you've gotten some funding from the city of Jacksonville. I believe they put in $15 million into phase one. What about state funding? Do you get a lot of private donors? How are you funding this project?
It's, as we used to say in the old days, an all skate. Everybody is at the table. We've gotten federal funding. Thank you, Congressman Rutherford. We've gotten state funding for 4 years. Thank you, Representative Wyman Duggins and Clay Yarborough. We've gotten city funding, as you mentioned. We've gotten private philanthropy, Mayo Clinic, Dolores Barr Weaver, the Terry Family Foundation, Ted and Lauren Baker. The list goes on. The Moran Family Foundation, DuPont. Everybody is at the table because everyone buys in. As Whitney was saying, this is a community of relationships.
Well, it's interesting that you've gotten bipartisan support at a time where politics have been so difficult to get anything done in this country. How are you able to accomplish that?
At Sulzbacher, we have always worked with everybody across the board. And we find that really there is a common denominator. People do want to help, and people do want to solve homelessness. And so really you just have to look at what's the end game. We all want it. We want people who are unhoused to be off the street. We want them to be back in the economy. And, we want people to have access to health care. So when you talk about it, really, it depends on who you're talking to. Some people, when you talk about it in economic terms. Some people, when you talk about it around the humanity. So it depends on, different people are at the table for different reasons, but at the end of the day, they all have the same goal.
And Whitney, I wanted to ask you, philanthropist Lauren Baker, who is one of the project's donors, said the project will be an economic engine for this area. How much economic impact do you think this will have in the Jacksonville area?
Yeah, I mean, it can have up to, all of our notes here show long term, you're caring about someone and thinking about the complete package. So you're thinking about housing, help, philanthropy from that area. You're also thinking about healthcare and how that's helping with costs. And then you're also thinking about people are getting trained and now they can go out, buy their own homes, care for their own families. So long-term impact, you can look up to $10 million when you think about the long-term plan, right? Hence why we've broken up into 4 different phases.
Because now they're becoming contributing members of the community.
Yep.
You grew up here in Jacksonville.
Mhm.
Why are you so passionate about this issue, and what do you want to see change in the city that you grew up in?
Yeah. Ooh, now we're getting emotional here, getting personal. Because, when you grow up here, you see people that right, who are experiencing homelessness. It's not just a number. It's a person. It's someone you went to high school with. It's someone you went to middle school with. And you have great memories with them. And you know that they just need somewhere to get back on their feet. And so for me, it's extremely personal because I can think of names right off the top of my head where I went to school with these people. And now I have direct access. I can call someone and say, hey, you have options. Because I think that's the thing is so many people just do not know where to go. There's a mix of embarrassment, right? There's so many emotions, so many mental health challenges as well, where family members have taken a pause. And it's so good to know that you have a neighbor that cares for you and who has direct access and can point people in the right direction. And again, when we think about Sulzbacher, we think about the village and what's to come, you really can see how this is putting Jacksonville on the map. This is innovation. This is taking things to a whole different level than we've ever experienced before in Jacksonville. And who wouldn't want to be a part of that, right? Everyone wants to make their community better. Everyone wants a community where their family, the next generation's coming up and they're saying, I am so proud of the people who've come before me. And because of them, we have this. And it sparks something else when we think about our children. When we're on summer vacation and a bunch of kids are talking, and I'm talking about the work of Sulzbacher, and I now have, my kids are 11 and 9, and they're talking with their cousins, and they're like, well, when we come to Jacksonville, we want to do some engaging volunteer work with Sulzbacher too. And it's really creating that next generation of philanthropists, those next community leaders to care about their neighbors as well. And Sulzbacher has so many ways that many people can volunteer. And I think that's what makes them special is not only are they leaning on innovation, workforce development initiatives that we keep talking about, and housing and healthcare, but really ways in the next generation can say, I want to make a difference too. And this is how I can contribute.
I wanted to add to that, Cindy, in terms of the new facility, are you going to need a lot of volunteers there to help out with that?
As a matter of fact, we're going to need a whole lot of volunteers pretty soon because we fully furnish our apartments. They're fully furnished with IKEA furniture. Think about what you have to do with IKEA furniture. At the first village, we had over 1,000 pieces of IKEA furniture that had to be put together, and we had over 500 volunteers within a 3-week period. Everyone came. I mean, the Navy came, the Jaguars came, high school football teams came, church ladies came. Everybody came and was putting together furniture. And so probably around mid to late September, we're going to be putting out an all-call right away. Hey, who wants to put together furniture? But that is another thing that makes this different is, and I didn't mention it, these are fully furnished apartments. Because when an unhoused person comes into an apartment, they only have the clothes on their back. So we make sure they have all the dishes, everything they need for the kitchen, all the linens, the whole place. You just walk in with your suitcase and you're ready to go. And that's the other thing that makes this project unique.
You really had to think about everything, didn't you?
Yes.
Down to who's putting the furniture together.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the employment piece.
Mm-hmm.
This is coming at a time where a lot of people are having a hard time finding a job or underemployed.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of career opportunities do you hope this will open up and lead up to? Of course, we've talked about the culinary field. And there's a big concern with AI with what jobs will be here 10 years from now. So how are you kind of evolving with that as well?
You lead right into what I normally say. These are AI-proof jobs. All right. So when you think about the trades and construction, those are good jobs, and they make a lot of money. And you're not going to have a robot coming in and hanging drywall or coming in and doing the plumbing anytime soon. That will happen eventually. But right now, the trades, the entry-level healthcare, which MAs and CNAs, health systems are in desperate need. We are at our own clinics. We cannot find enough MAs. So that is an entry level into healthcare. And when a person becomes an MA or a CNA, they have a future to go back to school and become a nurse. That's an entry point into the health care system, which are always great paying jobs. And then lastly, the culinary and hospitality, you're also not going to have robots making making food in the kitchens anytime soon. So we actually really did look at what jobs are AI proof, and at least for now, and what jobs can pay a living wage. And so those are the jobs, those are the types of certifications that we're going to be training for very intentionally.
Well, again, we have to leave it there. Cindy Funkhauser and Whitney Meyer, thank you so much for the wonderful work you are doing with Enterprise Village and the Sulzbacher Center. Up next, we meet the Democrat vying for Florida's House District 14 to unseat incumbent Kimberly Daniels in the upcoming August primary. Ryan Tutson joins us when we return. Welcome back. A former Florida Highway Patrol trooper, Florida Department of Children and Families investigator, and current investigator for the Duval County Public Schools is running on a platform centered around assurance, accountability, and affordability. Ryan Tutson has her sights set on Florida's House District 14, and she joins us in studio to talk about the exciting race. Good morning. Thank you for being here, Ryan.
Good morning.
You're one of the two candidates in the race that represent Florida's 14th District. Democratic incumbent Representative Kimberly Daniels is your competitor. And First Coast Connect has reached out to Representative Daniels to join the program. We haven't heard back as of this morning, but that invitation is open. I wanted to talk a little bit, first of all, about your background here in Jacksonville and also your career. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your history in Jacksonville.
Okay. So I did grow up here in Arlington. I actually graduated from Stanton in my senior year, 2008. I'm kind of dating myself now. But after that, I went to college down in Fort Myers. I went to Florida Gulf Coast University, spent time down there, lived there for a little while, came back here, and that's when I joined FHP. I was with them for about 5.5 years. Then I promoted up to traffic homicide investigations. So I went back to Fort Myers, spent more time down there, and then came back. After that, I worked for DCF as a child protective investigator. And then, in between jobs there, I also became a investigator for Duval County Public Schools, which is what I do now.
So you're a fellow Blue Devil, I see.
Oh, yes.
Tell me a little bit about your interest in law enforcement specifically and how that's helped you in getting ready to run for this office.
So I've known since I was about 11 years old that I wanted to be in some form of public service. Initially, it's because I used to religiously watch Forensic Files, which, if you ask my husband, I still do now. But I've always had an interest in solving problems. I want to be the one to fix things for people. So it just seemed natural to go into law enforcement. I used to have the strong ambition to go into federal law enforcement. I wanted to be an air marshal. But after, life was lifing, I did settle down and come do just investigations at the school level, which I'm still incredibly satisfied with. It gives that satisfaction to still write that closing story for an investigation.
You have a bold statement on the homepage of your website, which reads, "The Constitution doesn't say except for the poor. The pledge doesn't say one nation under the Christian God. And we, the people, doesn't come with a guest list." Explain what you mean by that.
That means we are a country of everybody. Unfortunately, some people want to separate race from things. And it's not that I want to make it a racial situation, but when you look at our Constitution, it literally is written about race. It defines African Americans as 3/5 of a person. It excludes the indigenous entirely. But when we were indoctrinated in school to say the Pledge of Allegiance, it says liberty and justice for all. If you look at the constitutions of the states, the Constitution of the United States, it even says for all in several places. So you can't exclude people if you're trying to move toward a better community and a better society for everyone.
Your opponent, Kim Daniels, is a minister and has a military and law enforcement background as well. What are the main differences between you and your opponent?
So from the research I've done, because I've not actually met her, just the research I've done, she is deeply religious, and it's not saying that I'm not. I just don't make that the center spear of everything. I do have my values. I attend Legacy Ministries, that is my church, but I don't make that my focal point when it comes to trying to determine policies and such. I more so focus on how I can benefit. I focus on the teaching that the Bible, Bible I believe in, tells to do, which is to include everyone, to help your neighbor, to love your neighbor. And that's how I operate, is to make, decisions based on how it's going to affect those around me and not just me.
And in terms of that and how you want to help people, you have 11 pieces of legislation on your website that you've said you're ready to pass on day one. Pretty ambitious. Let's go over some of those.
Sure.
One of them, gun violence reform. What do you propose?
So my whole proposal is if we can have registries for everything else, why would a responsible gun owner not want to have a registry? My whole thing is it tracks now if your firearm gets stolen. It tracks sales. It's not to say that you can't have your weapons. I was a law enforcement officer. I love my guns too, but I keep them safe. I've never had to worry about any of my children getting a hold of my weapon. It's making sure that, again, if it ever got stolen, it can be tracked, because now if it gets used in a crime, we know where it's supposed to be. So it's really about just having those safeguards. And because we've had so many mass shootings in schools, we need to be able to restrict who can access those weapons. For example, if you've had a Baker Act. Not that you shouldn't be able to live in society, but there should be second and third thoughts about whether or not you should be able to wield a weapon.
Another issue you talked about was reproductive rights, and you say this one's personal for you. Why?
So a little bit about my history here. I actually have almost died in childbirth twice. So I have a personal gripe with those who don't support reproductive freedom. And I say that because with my second son, I went into labor 7 weeks early. So he was born at 33 weeks.
Wow.
8 days after that, I started hemorrhaging because I didn't know I had a condition called placenta accreta. For those who are not medical doctors, it's simple Google. But basically, I had issues that we didn't even know about. And when I started hemorrhaging, I lost about 4.5 liters of blood, which the human body only holds about 5.5. So a lot. Then found out about a year and a half, not even a year and a half, about 13 months later that I was pregnant with my daughter. And I know there are some who are against abortion, and I understand, but I would have liked to be the one to decide whether or not I wanted to risk my life again to have another child. I was 5.5 weeks along. So Florida's law decided for me that I had to have that child. And in all of that, I went through horrible morning sickness, and I say morning sickness, but it was throughout the day. Incredible physical pain the whole time. I was monitored by 2 separate obstetricians. I was high risk. And then when I had my daughter, again, 6 days early at this point, even though I was scheduled for a C-section, she came out 6 days early. And I actually left with her, but I had to have an emergency hysterectomy because of my issues.
And Black maternal health is also an issue that is very close to your heart. What are some of your concerns?
It's that we get ignored. And I say we because obviously I'm a Black woman, but even just women of color, period. We get treated as though our pain is higher tolerance. And yes, we may have that, but that doesn't mean we should be ignored or taken for granted with things. And I give an example. During my experience in the hospital, I tried to explain to the doctor that was tending to me at the time that he was being too rough when he was removing my medical device. And he wasn't listening to me to the point where I screamed at him. And I didn't intend to, of course, cause any harm or be mean. But, if I'm telling you it hurts, like that means stop or do it a different way. And he just continued. So that's part of the things that get ignored is that when we say we have pain, we mean we have pain.
If you're just joining us, we're talking to Ryan Tutson, Democratic candidate for Florida's 14th House District. If you have any questions for her, you can join the conversation and give us a call on air by calling 904-549-2937. I also wanted to ask you to clarify a little bit about your district because you're in Arlington, but some people might not understand what entails your district. Can you go into that?
Absolutely. So if you're looking at the map of Jacksonville and you see the 295 loop, if you go out to New Kings and follow it around, basically follow the river/95 corridor down to about Beach Boulevard, and then everything inside of that east loop is my area as far as District 14. So it's got some of the north side, a little bit of the west side, obviously like Ocean Way, Arlington, a little piece of downtown like Mixontown, Durkeeville, those areas.
What are the issues that are specific to those areas when you go to talk to people in those neighborhoods? What are they telling you are their concerns right now?
Honestly, affordability and housing. Everything at this point, which a lot of us are experiencing, is affordability. Some can't get jobs because they require degrees, or the jobs aren't paying enough, or, housing rent is $2,000 and they want, first month, last month security deposit. Just everything that creates blockages to be able to, or to being able to achieve just life in general. It's just hard to get into places where you can feel secure.
Talking a little bit about your platform, what is the Nothing But the Truth Act?
So with that, I don't know if a lot of people are aware, but a couple of years ago, our governor put into place that part of the curriculum that will be taught in schools and is being taught now, and several teachers can confirm this, is that the children must be taught that slavery provided benefit to the enslaved. To me, that's an insult. There's no, you can't justify saying that enslaving someone taught them skills. Why would you have someone come do work when they have no skills? Obviously, you would have to teach them. But it's also an insult to the fact that slavery was so brutal and it tore generations of families apart. So to the Nothing But the Truth Act puts the actual truth back into the history of this country. Yes, it's a rough history. Yes, there were woes that happened in the past. And no, you particularly can't change them. But going forward, you cannot make those mistakes again. You cannot make those poor choices again. And we can all learn from what has happened and move forward from that history.
You work in the schools and deal with kids. What are you seeing are the biggest needs in our schools right now, especially when it comes to teachers?
Teachers need to be paid. That is the bold bottom line. They're not being paid what they're worth. My mom has actually been a teacher for 33 years, and I make more than her at this point, which to me is insane. Someone who has been especially dedicated for 30 years of service should not be making less than, $50,000 a year. That's crazy, especially in these times when things are just expensive. Plus, she's one of those teachers that if you call her day or night, she's available. So to have teachers be underpaid in such a gross way, and then there's constantly cuts on funding to schools for activities. And like I was in marching band, a lot of the bands and music programs are gone. Those are things that I know for a fact helped me in school with organization, with mathematics, with timing, with staying on beat with things. Just it's programs that are necessary. So honestly, teacher pay is the main one, but also resources for the children. Like everything keeps getting cut from them. So they're not getting the same education even that I had. And that wasn't that long ago.
And a lot of your policies are pretty progressive. How do you plan to get that passed when you go to Tallahassee?
So it's about finding common ground. I know a strategy that I've had so far for my campaign is that I'm not counting anyone out. Almost a President Obama approach. You can't eliminate people just because they disagree with you. So if there is something that, someone on the other side of the aisle does not like about my platform, okay, well, where can we make the improvement? What is it that you would want to see attached to this? Or what would you want to see a little bit different? Because we still have to move forward for our constituents collectively. We can't just argue and disagree and not pass anything. It's not productive.
And what are some ways that you've been able to accomplish that in your career?
So far, honestly, I've been able to, for even as a state trooper, like I was able to literally talk people into handcuffs. Treat people like they're human. Don't treat them like they're less than. You get more, what they say, flies with honey than vinegar. That saying is so true. If you treat people with respect, give them what you would want. Yes, you're going to have those who are combative, but at the same time, it will show a lot about your character and your integrity on how you treat people. Plus, we all have to answer to our own maker in the end. So I'd rather be able to say I did what I could and I did it to the best of my ability.
Can you touch really quickly a little bit on the Power to the People Act and what that proposes?
Yes. So Power to the People, I love puns, so forgive me. But Power to the People is actually about solar energy for the most part, because we live in Florida, which is the sunshine state. And we get 300 days of usable sunshine out of the year. Part of the insanity that I feel like is going on is why those with solar have to pay the utility companies for using free solar energy.
And you don't see a lot of solar in Florida, which is crazy.
Yeah, they've put not even bans, they've put restrictions on how it can be used and how much you can use. And that makes no sense.
And it's not affordable.
At all. We pay some of the highest utility bills in the country with free sunshine. So that's what Power to the People does. It limits those restrictions. I believe I do have a piece in there also about like data centers. I'm not specifically against them, but they need to be researched and regulated before we make any kind of decisions anywhere. And with this drought we're going through, yeah, let's pause on those.
Do you think that's an issue that's actually going to have bipartisan support, or by bring people together from different political beliefs?
I'm hoping it will bring us together to solve the issue of it. Like, AI is a great tool, but when the data centers itself are consuming more resources than we have for the people that live here, we have to rethink that whole thing.
Well, folks can come out and meet you tonight at the Duval County Candidates Forum at the St. Stephen AME Church. That's at 913 West 5th Street. The meet and greet is at 5:30, and the forum starts at 6:30. Ryan Tutson, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Up next, a Deadhead Festival returns to the South Bank.
One year ago, WJCT Public Media faced the loss of nearly $2 million in annual federal and state funding. Many wondered, what would that mean for local journalism, educational programming, and the services our community relies on every day? But you stepped forward. Because of your generosity, WJCT continues to inform, inspire, educate, and entertain Northeast Florida. Thank you for helping us navigate this historic transition. The best chapter of WJCT Public Media is not behind us. It's the one we're about to write together. Help us continue the next chapter at wjct.org/future.
'80s Heartland rock. Artists like John Mellencamp and Bruce Springsteen sang about working people and factory towns and politics.
Even though they were selling zillions of records, they were saying things that were maybe really unpopular with the people who were buying those records.
That's on the next.
Is that AI? It's getting harder to detect AI in text, photos, and in videos. Even some experts say they can no longer trust their own eyes. Can detection tools keep up with the fast-changing technology? And what happens when the public can no longer trust the content in front of them? Is seeing really believing in the age of AI? Next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Were played on the orchestra. Would you hear my voice?
Welcome back. This weekend, 3 generations of Deadheads will gather for the 31st annual China Cat Sunflower Festival. Here to tell us about it are Brenda Starwalker, China Cat Sunflower Festival organizer. Good morning.
Good morning.
And musician Irvid Smith, a China Cat Sunflower Festival performer. Nice to see you again, Irvid.
Fantastic to be here.
Brenda, what inspired you to start this event 31 years ago?
I was driving around in my car after Jerry had died, and I had a tape that one of the people who gave me tickets to see my first show had made for me, and China Cat Sunflower, the song, was playing, and I thought, I've got to do something. And I thought, the China Cat Sunflower Festival. Deadheads would know immediately what that was. Anybody else would go, what's that, you know?
And how did Jerry inspire you?
Well, he had a song, Terrapin Station. One of the lyrics is, inspiration moves us brightly. And that is how I want to live my life, you know?
Inspired and happy.
Yes.
And Irvid, from a musician's perspective, what part did Jerry Garcia play in the evolution of the jam band scene?
Well, part of what the Grateful Dead and a lot of other groundbreaking groups featured, at least what made them interesting to me, was that previous to forming these bands, nobody was a rock and roller. They didn't play a sock hop once in their life. They were all jug band players, bluegrass musicians, experimental composers, and they brought that in to when they played. So if you hear a classic, a Dead composition or a performance, and no two are alike, you're going to hear all these elements coming in. Anybody just go to Live Dead 69 and listen to Dark Star, and it's one of the greatest pieces of improvisation ever in any kind of music anywhere.
I want to play a little bit of China Cat Sunflower by the Grateful Dead.
To listen to the song Ripple. It's kind of our anthem. It's the sweetest tune. And at Grateful Dead shows, one of the things that hooked me was everybody sings along. They don't sit down. They stand up and they dance and they sing every word to every song. And just quickly, the words to the first verse are, look for a while at the China Cat Sunflower, proud walk and jingle in the midnight sun. A copper dome Bodhi dripped a silver kimono like a crazy quilt star gown through a dream night wind. That's the first verse.
And what does that do for you?
It inspires me. It's beautiful. It's just amazing. And every verse is as cool as that. And I heard every word, which is unusual. Jerry was really good about enunciating so that you heard what he was singing about.
If I could add, there's one of the things about the Dead is that they had an auxiliary member of their band who was their lyricist, Robert Hunter.
Right.
And he was just a lyricist. And so that's very interesting because most bands are self-contained, but to have an outside person as your lyricist is kind of nice.
Yeah.
How does playing at an event like this differ from a regular gig? Does the crowd's energy and expectations change of how you play?
Yes, they're all there for the same purpose, and it's a cult.
It is. It's a tribe. I call it a tribe.
It's a tribe.
A kind
it's a tribe. They're
tribe.
all there. They're all there for the same. I guess.
Bliss.
Zenith. I guess.
Yeah, bliss.
And how has the crowd changed over 3 decades? Are you seeing kids of original Deadheads now bringing their own kids?
It's 3 generations. It's my generation, my kids, and their kids.
And Jerry Garcia passed away in 1995. For people too young to have seen him live, what do you want them to understand about why his music still matters?
Well, it's enduring, that's for sure. And one of the things I think that make people really want to do it is, like Arvid said, you can go to a show and hear the same song a couple of times. Rarely did that happen, but when it did, it was never the same. They always made it really fresh and new.
Well, it's an exciting event happening this Friday. The China Cat Sunflower Festival kicks off at 4:20 at the Southern Grill on the South Bank, and it's a free event, but donations are welcome. Brenda Starr Walker and Arvid Smith, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
And that's our program. Thank you for listening, and thanks to all of you who called and emailed. We encourage your feedback and suggestions, and you can submit either at firstcoastconnect.org. You can also find all of our past and current shows, and while you're there, you can sign up for the FCC newsletter, which gives you a sneak peek at upcoming guests and a chance to submit questions in advance. Join us tomorrow when our panel of journalists examines the week's biggest news, from the council's botched attempt to override a mayoral veto to a Riverside road diet. I'm Hethel Butt. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on
Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Terrell Hogan Law.
I'm Wayne Hogan. At 60 miles an hour, 18-wheelers can take the length of a football field to stop, and the law requires them to stay 300 feet apart.
More at terrellhoganlaw.com.
This is WJCT News